The Snowline Express. The air on the platform was sharp, tasting of iron, frost, and distant frozen pine. It was the kind of cold that lived deep in the bones of the earth, ancient and still. Elias stood alone under the pale yellow glow of a gas lamp, its light barely piercing the thick, swirling mist of his own breath. The station clock, a great white face suspended above the tracks, showed a time long past midnight. The rest of the world had long since retreated into sleep, leaving this silent, frozen space just for him and the train that waited. The engine was a massive, slumbering beast of polished steel and brass, humming a low, resonant note that vibrated gently through the soles of Elias's boots. It was waiting patiently. It was ready to carry the weight of the journey so he no longer had to. Elias stepped up from the frosted concrete onto the metal stairs of the carriage. The brass handrail was cool and solid beneath his gloved hand. He pulled himself up and stepped through the threshold, the heavy door sealing behind him with a solid, satisfying thud. Instantly, the biting winter was gone. The world outside, the wind, the ice, the emptiness, was replaced by a thick, enveloping warmth. The air inside the train smelled faintly and pleasantly of beeswax, old leather-bound books, and dried lavender. He walked down the narrow corridor, his footsteps swallowed completely by the thick runner carpet in deep burgundy. The lights were dimmed low, casting long, soft shadows that stretched ahead of him. He found his compartment, cabin number 4, and slid the heavy mahogany door open. It was a sanctuary in miniature. The space was dominated by a wide, welcoming armchair, upholstered in crushed velvet the color of deep forest moss. A small brass lamp on a wooden table cast a solitary pool of warm amber light, leaving the corners of the cabin in soft, comforting shadow. Folded neatly on the seat was a blanket woven from thick, natural wool. Elias stepped inside and slid the door shut. The latch clicked into place. Click. That small sound was a punctuation mark at the end of a long sentence, signaling that the noise of the world was finally locked out. He was safe. He was contained. He removed his heavy coat, hanging it near the door, shedding the weight of the winter. He sat down in the velvet armchair. The cushions were deep and supportive, accepting his weight immediately. The velvet was impossibly soft against his hands, a texture that invited stillness. He leaned back, and the high winged back of the chair cradled his shoulders, his neck, and his head. He unfolded the wool blanket, spreading it over his legs and lap. It had a pleasant, grounding weight, anchoring him to the seat, pressing him gently down into comfort. Underneath the floorboards, a deep, powerful thrumming began. It felt less like a machine starting and more like a great heart beginning to beat, slow and steady. The train gave a gentle, almost imperceptible lurch forward. They were moving. At first, it was just a slow, heavy glide out of the station yard. Elias watched the last few lights of the platform slide past the window and vanish. Then the true rhythm began, a hypnotic, metallic lullaby that would carry him through the night. Clack-clack, swoosh, clack-clack, swoosh. It was the heartbeat of the journey, a slow, steady rocking motion that traveled up through the floor, into the chair, and into Elias's body. The train became a cradle, swaying gently side to side as it wound its way out of the sleeping valley and toward the vast, open wilderness. Elias turned his attention to the large window. The glass was cool, reflecting a faint, ghostly image of the warm cabin interior. Beyond the glass, the landscape had transformed. The city lights were long gone, replaced by the immense quiet of a snow-covered forest. The moon, full and bright silver, hung high above the tree line. It illuminated the world in monochrome. The trees were ancient, towering pines, their boughs bent low under heavy burdens of thick white snow. They passed by the window in a blur of deep shadow and bright silver light, a mesmerizing, endless reel of silent winter beauty. Elias watched the trees drift past. His eyes tracked the slow movement of the moon through the branches. He felt a distinct dropping sensation in his shoulders as the tension he hadn't realized he was holding finally released. His jaw unclenched, his hands resting on the wool blanket uncurled, the fingers loose and soft. He was no longer resisting gravity, he was giving into it. He was matching the lazy speed of the train. Clack, clack, swoosh. Clack, clack, swoosh. The sound acted as a barrier. No worries could cross that rhythmic threshold. The train was moving too fast for troubles to catch up, but slow enough for deep rest to settle in. Elias felt suspended in time, caught in a peaceful space between where he had been and where he was going. On the small table under the amber lamp, a ceramic mug rested on a coaster. Thin wisps of steam curled upwards from it, dancing lazily in the warm light before dissolving into the air. Elias reached out. His arm felt heavy, moving slowly through the warm air, and wrapped his fingers around the mug. The heat from the thick porcelain seeped into his palms, a comforting, localized warmth. He brought the cup to his lips. It was a gentle herbal blend, chamomile, valerian root, and a hint of honey. He took a small, slow sip. The liquid was perfectly warm, sliding down his throat, blooming like a golden flower of heat in his chest. It spread outwards from his center, relaxing the muscles of his stomach, warming his blood. He set the cup down with a soft clink. The train began to climb. Elias could feel the shift in gravity, a gentle pressure pushing him deeper into the velvet chair as the great engine worked against the incline. The vibration beneath the floorboards deepened, a resonant hum that traveled up through his feet, into his shins, vibrating the last remnants of energy out of his calves and thighs. Outside the window, the dense forest began to thin and open up. The train emerged alongside a vast frozen lake. The surface was a flawless sheet of white ice, dusted with shimmering snow. The moon cast a glittering silver path across the frozen water, a road leading to the horizon. The world outside was locked in ice, silent and impossibly still. Yet Elias was moving, cocooned in warmth, protected and carried. He watched the moonlight trace its path across the ice. His eyelids began to feel wonderfully heavy, as if small, warm weights had been placed upon them. It took a conscious effort to keep them open to watch the passing scenery. Every time he blinked, it took a fraction of a second longer to lift them again. Blink, open. Blink, open. Ahead, the mountain loomed, and the train slipped into the mouth of a long tunnel. The moonlight vanished instantly. The window turned completely black, becoming a dark mirror reflecting only the warm, dim interior of the cabin, the amber lamp, the edge of the velvet chair, Elias's own sleepy reflection. The sound changed immediately. The open-air clack-clack became deeper, richer, echoing off the close rock walls. It was a low, rushing roar that wrapped around the cabin like a heavy blanket, drowning out everything else. In this silent darkness, there was nothing left to see. The visual world had retreated. There was only the feeling of motion, the gentle sway to the left, then the gentle sway to the right. Elias let his head rest fully against the winged back of the chair. The muscles in his neck gave up their hold. His head felt pleasant and heavy. He decided to close his eyes, just for a moment, just until the train emerged from the tunnel. Even with his eyes closed, the rhythm was there. It was a physical sensation now, a gentle rocking that penetrated deep into his mind. He was drifting on a sea of sound. Clack, clack. Clack, clack. His legs felt profoundly heavy under the wool blanket, sinking into the upholstery. His breathing slowed down, naturally falling into sync with the slow, steady rhythm of the wheels beneath him. In for the count of 2 wheels, out for the count of 2 wheels. He felt a change in the light behind his closed eyelids as the train emerged from the tunnel. The pitch black shifted to a soft, muted gray as the moonlight returned to the window, but Elias was too comfortable to look. The visual world was gone now. It didn't matter anymore. There was only sensation. He imagined the train was taking him higher and higher, climbing above the clouds into the thin, crisp air where true silence lived. A deep wave of relaxation began at the crown of his head. It felt like warm, slow-moving water. It trickled down his forehead, smoothing out the lines of thought. It flowed heavily over his eyes, relaxing the tiny muscles in the corners. It flowed down his cheeks, slackening his jaw. His mouth parted slightly, and his tongue fell away from the roof of his mouth, resting softly. The warm wave continued its slow descent, flowing down his neck, spreading wide over his shoulders, melting the tight knots. It traveled down his arms, past his elbows, into his wrists, and finally out through his fingertips. He felt a pleasant, tingling sensation, a soft numbness that was the precursor to deep sleep taking over his body. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, the train began to slow down. The engine was no longer striving against the mountain. It had reached the plateau. The rhythm of the tracks changed, spacing out, becoming slower and deeper. Clack, clack, clack. The swaying motion became gentle, barely a rock now, just a subtle shifting of weight. The vibration beneath the floorboards softened from a hum to a deep, quiet purr. Elias realized he was arriving, not at a station of brick and mortar, but at the edge of sleep. The train was gliding now, sliding silently over rails dusted with snow, carrying him into the vast, quiet station of dreams. The sound faded away almost entirely. The motion ceased. Elias was perfectly still,